All right, welcome back to Rage's Cantina, the podcast, everyone. Today on the show, the promised KotOR 2 DLC has been canceled, and I'm going to give my general opinions on the matter. Some KotOR characters are getting a sex change for the remake. We'll tell you exactly who. And we've got some of the biggest Star Wars news yet here on the podcast. It's pretty huge, and you're not going to want to miss it. That and more. It's Rage's Cantina, the podcast, episode 10, ranked the best new Star Wars podcast of all time.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Alright, what is going on, Box Bros? Welcome back to the Rage's Cantina podcast. I'm joined today once again by my co-host Tomba. What's going on, Tomba?
How's it going, Box Bros?
And we're joined today by a new guest, Hombree, who is a fellow Star Wars nerd and one of the top mods for 100% Star Wars. How you doing today, Hombree?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you very much.
So we're going to be talking about, KotOR news, Star Wars news in general. The KotOR news we're going to talk about, it's a little old, but I figured I'd bring it up so we can give our thoughts and opinions on it. The first bit of news we got here is, of course, about the KotOR 2 DLC that was canceled. Now, I already made a short talking about this, but yeah, the KotOR 2 DLC that Asper promised us was officially canceled a few weeks ago, or maybe like a week and a half. The cancellation is apparently due to legal issues from within the company, but no official reason has really been given. Again, the news is a bit old now, so there's not too much to say, but again, I figured we could just go over it and go over my thoughts and feelings on the matter, as well as your guys' too. So I'll start off with you, Tom, but what do you think about Asper dropping the ball on this one?
I think you shouldn't make promises you can't keep, that the community was able to do very easily anyway, so it shouldn't have been too difficult. I don't think they should have ran before they could walk in terms of making promises. And more to the point, I think it was very shady because I've seen pictures and videos comparing the initial announcement and comparing pictures of the game on the store now, and they've quietly removed all mention of the restored content DLC. Even though it was mentioned, you're not going to do something, just come out and say it. You don't have to be shady like that, because it just gives you a poor reputation as a company.
I mean, it does seem like they knew they weren't going to be able to put it out like a lot longer ago, and they were just kind of like, I don't know. But from what I heard, it was because of legal problems, and if that's the case, then I guess it's not 100% really their fault. It seems like Luke, who is the head of 100% Star Wars, who, like I said, you're a mod for, has the inside scoop on some of these things, and it seems like his opinion is that it's really just not their fault at all. So what do you think, Hombree?
On one side, we have a company that made a promise and should be held accountable for not keeping, but on the other hand, we have a company that clearly is going through a lot right now, and it's probably just some legal bullshit actually going in the way. And also we have the actual creators of the restored content mod that say we shouldn't take it out on them because it was cancelled.
It just sucks. I think a lot of people are disappointed because that's like only reason I would have bought KotOR 2 on Switch is for that DLC. That's the only reason. Because I mean that sounded huge. An official restored content mod for KotOR 2. It's just, I think a lot of people are disappointed, and I don't know if some other company might pick it up eventually and do it one day. Who knows? But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Alright, well, I guess that's it. We'll move on to the next one. Apparently, from insiders, the KotOR remake will have the same quests and character stories, but will be expanded on, while some will have their sex change, some characters in the story. Now, the main storyline is expected to not have any changes, though. Yeah, right, I'll believe it when it's out. But the characters reportedly getting the sex change operation done are Calo Nord and Saul Kareth. Now, there could be more, we don't know, but those are just the ones that have been confirmed for this. So I really don't see the reason to change the sex of any characters in KotOR. I mean, there were plenty of women in the original game. I mean, plenty of, front and center women, like Bastila, Juhani. I mean, I really just don't see the point in sex swapping. It just feels like more like agenda shit, you know what I mean? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I just think, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I just find it pretty disrespectful to George. Like, if I said, here's a game, or here's a book that I made, right? And I said the main character is called David, and he's a spaceman, right? And then you changed it to, oh, well, we're going to call it Danielle, the space girl. Well, then it's not the same story.
I will correct you that George really didn't have all that much to do with KotOR as far as KotOR is concerned. But in general, they do shit all over George's work all the time, Disney. So I don't
maybe not George, but the original story creators. Then the people who designed the story. What is I forgot the word for it now. Like, what is safe anymore? Like, what is,
sacred,
protected, sacred? That's it. I was thinking sanctity for some reason. What is what is sacred anymore? Can you not just make something and have it like stay made? Like, what's next? Are they gonna like gender swap Jesus?
I mean, I don't know. I just think there's no point. Like, KotOR is like this grizzly, gruff like dude, like this like badass bounty hunter. And I'm not saying women can't be a badass bounty hunter, but I'm just saying that, like, being a gruff dude is, like, part of his persona. So now you're just going to make him a woman? It's like he's not even the same character. I guess that's fine for those who think there is absolutely no differences between men and women. I guess that's going to work for them, but not everybody feels that way, and I just feel like it's not going to do a service to KotOR's character. Same thing with Saul. Like, Saul Kareth, like, I don't know. Like... It's just, why is he going to be made a woman? Like, I don't know, it just doesn't make much sense to me. What are your thoughts, Hombree?
Well, so both KotOR and Saul are quite important characters to the story, but the changing their gender isn't actually going to change all that much, so it wouldn't really hurt, but at the same time it's completely pointless. Like, there is no point to it. Like, we have KotOR, they are this gruffled man with this beautiful chin that's just ready to destroy your day because you have a bounty on your head, yeah? And just make him a woman because reasons. Because
agenda, like I said, it's like agenda stuff. And that itself doesn't bode well for the rest. Because if they're willing to compromise there and slip in that agenda stuff, then who knows what else they're going to change in the story that could end up having a negative effect on the overall story of the new game. So, I don't know. It just doesn't look good, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, because on KotOR it is not really that bad because it wouldn't change much because he really just shows up, kills some people, and there he hunts you down, and that's about it. Yeah, but Saul is a crucial part of Karth's story, backstory, yeah, and changing his gender kinda ruins the point because we had this big bad man that decided to betray all of his people for the sake of I don't really remember how it happened, but he basically betrayed everyone, like this super bad man, yeah?
He just wanted to join the winning team, Saul. Like, he believed that the Republic was failing, so he joined up with the Sith.
He was a ruthless military leader, and for some reason, I think, like, writers nowadays really think, like, we're missing some of those, but female.
And Saul was Karth's mentor as well.
He was kind of like a father figure as well, I think.
Exactly. So, like, making him a woman just it doesn't make sense. So already, like, yeah, we're I didn't even think of that, man. So we're already picking it apart, and it's kind of like interfering with the story a bit. So I don't think there's a point. Just keep the characters' genders the same. I don't see the reason. I just don't see the reason. So
I mean, for KotOR, it's not that bad.
For KotOR, it's not that bad, but I think for Saul, it's a lot worse. But even for KotOR, it's like, I understand if they wanted to make a badass woman bounty hunter, but they already had that with Selvin. Like, who's that woman you hunt down in Terrace? Like, she was a really badass bounty hunter that you kill in the game. So it's like, they already... And even though I know she wasn't a major character in the story, but, like, she was still there, so it's like, I don't know.
I mean, she's kind of one of those NPC characters that just comes and goes, so she's not really of that much value to the story. So I can understand the need to make a badass female bounty hunter in the Old Republic era, because aside from the bounty hunter chick from the cinematics of the Old Republic MMO.
My opinion, though, is that if they really want to, they just make a new character. Now, I know that would, though, also... Yeah, just make, like, a new character then, but then, of course, that might interfere with the story or something, so... But then just make a new game. Like, you know, if you want, make a new Star Wars game with badass women bounty hunters in it. We'll see what happens there, so, I don't know. Any closing thoughts on that one, Tomba?
I'm just looking at quotes right now from the game, and it says here that Saul taught him how to be the man he is today. He taught me everything about being a soldier, and I looked up to him.
All right, well, let's move on to the next thing. Star Wars: The Old Republic, you know, good old SWTOR, will reportedly be leaving BioWare. So it's according to a news article from The Escapist. Yeah, the Old Republic will reportedly leave BioWare for a third-party developer. Or is it that BioWare is leaving the Old Republic? I don't know. But at any rate, after 12 years, BioWare will no longer be the head of the Old Republic MMO.
I'm hoping that the reason behind that is because of disagreements with Disney. I like to imagine that BioWare would keep themselves... Like, they would not sacrifice their morals and principles for the Disney paycheck.
Thing is, BioWare has changed a lot since KotOR 1. They're not the same company they were back then.
Oh, I know, believe me, let's not all forget that trash heap that was Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah, that was no joke. But, so the game has generated over $1 billion in its tenure, so I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. Broadsword is the name of the company that will be taking over, whose founder, Rob Denton, was actually the former vice president of BioWare, ironically enough. So, will the Old Republic be in good hands? What do you guys think?
I'm not really familiar with the developer, but to be honest, the Old Republic is plagued with the problem of being an MMO. So there has to be a flood of new content every so often, and they need to create even crazier stories and make it even crazier. And in the end, we have problems like the Great Sith Overlord, Tenebrae, or whatever his name was. Like, it's just too much, to be honest.
It did get very watered down, the whole story, or maybe not watered down, but kind of like convoluted in a way. Two things made me lose interest in the Old Republic, because I did play it back in the day, and I think I leveled like Jedi Warrior or whatever, like the main like Jedi class, the Guardian, I think, to like level 40, and I just got bored with it and I quit playing, and I really haven't played it much at all since. But, so two things, just the story, like I said, got really uninteresting and convoluted, and I really don't like what they did with Revan's story. I don't like it at all. I just think they mishandled that very poorly. I think the whole story, I've said this on the podcast before, but I think the whole story with KotOR 2, how it's like Revan just kind of like went off into the unknown regions and he disappeared and like that's it. And it's like, I think they should have left it there, you know, because I feel like his story ends a lot better if it's like you don't know what happened to him. It's just like left up as a mystery, like, or for the player to interpret, you know, like I think that's better than what they did.
The open interpretation would be much better as well, I think, because you have this big philosophical game like KotOR 2, yeah? And it asks a lot of important questions, and then you have this beautiful shot of the Ebon Hawk flying away into the unknown regions, and it will be just a perfect, sweet ending to the series, I think. And then we have the MMO, which kind of answers a lot of questions, and these answers aren't very satisfying, to be honest.
Right, unsatisfying answers. So it's like, I think they should have left well enough alone, honestly. I mean, KotOR 3 would have been the real play, let's all be honest.
But it should keep away from the unknown regions and stay in their galaxy. No.
I've come to learn that all the greatest heroes throughout like mythos and storytelling, they like their ending is always like they ride off into the sunset and that's it. You don't know whatever happened to them, and that's like the end. Because they're too big of a character to have an ending. You know what I mean? Like so it's better that you just don't know what happened to them in the end. And so that I think Revan's like his story ending that way was so much better than what they did with SWTOR. So anyway, so that's like the two reasons why I kind of fell off the horse with SWTOR. I just quit playing it and I just don't really care about it at all. I figured I'd bring this up for those of you who do still play it. I know I have quite a few fans on the channel that still play SWTOR, so we'll see if this new company actually produces some new content for SWTOR, maybe some new expansions, maybe something interesting enough to where I might give it another look. I don't know, we'll have to see.
What is the company called?
They're called Broadsword.
I'll have to look into them.
Again, the company's founder, whose name is Rob Denton, was the former vice president of BioWare back in the day. It makes me think, okay, so maybe SWTOR will be in good hands with this new company. We'll have to see what happens. On to some more general Star Wars news. So the media has once again lied about Star Wars fans. So a direct article published a few weeks ago claims that a Star Wars producer calls out toxic fandom attacking Kathleen Kennedy. That's what it said. So not only is the article title inaccurate here, but you could say that it's an outright lie. I did a little bit of research into this, and kind of stupid. The article has been written based on an interview, it seems, that Tony Gilroy did with Deadline, another Access Media shill corporation. And all this article appears to be doing is taking quotes from that interview and presenting them here mostly out of context. On top of this, the interview, Tony Gilroy and the interviewer never called, in the interview, they never called fans toxic at all. That was just never said. They just talk about how passionate the fans can be, some stuff about how he felt when he was making Rogue One. This is the guy that made Rogue One. A link to the article will be left down below so you guys can see it for yourselves and judge it for yourselves, but it just seems like the media has been caught in another lie trying to demonize Star Wars fans, and it really just makes me sad. What do you guys think?
It doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't surprise me. They have this, like, attitude nowadays where it's like, if you don't agree with Disney Star Wars, then you're some kind of like rogue crazy Star Wars fan. Like, it's like a herd mentality. It's like, oh yeah, it's like you don't follow the train, well then you're a problem. It's just silly. It's like whatever happened to people having different opinions, and that was okay, you know.
And it's funny because in the interview, Gilroy says that, like, while some Star Wars fans can get real passionate, you have to, like, respect their love for Star Wars. It's almost like in the interview, he says, like, the exact opposite of what they're trying to say. Like, in this article, they're trying to say that he, like, bashed the fans and said that they're toxic, when it's, like, literally the opposite. So, I don't know. It's like, did they just think that people wouldn't go and watch the interview themselves? But the Direct is like a big media outlet, like with millions of publishers. Like, I don't know how they're, or publications, I mean, I don't know how they're just like outright lying like this and then like getting away with it for the most part. I'm probably going to be one of the only YouTubers talking about this, to be honest. I just don't get it.
I don't know, I just don't like the way Star Wars is turning out nowadays. Not good. Not a good look.
Well, things could be changing, though, very soon, because coming up is some of the biggest news we've ever had here on podcast.
If it's what I think you're talking about, let's just take it with a grain of salt, because it could just be a rumor.
That goes without saying. We will take this with a grain of salt, but let me get into it. So, big news. Again, some of the biggest news we've probably ever had here on the podcast. Multiple sources, and I mean like hundreds of sources. This isn't like just like a couple people. Multiple sources are saying that an offer for Lucasfilm from an individual, okay, in air quotes, an individual is on the table. There is an offer. Now, there are more unsubstantiated rumors, now this is from a lot less sources, that the individual that they're speaking of is George Lucas. Now, these leaks and rumors are apparently coming from very legitimate sources that have been right in the past about things. And they're all direct from Disney and Lucasfilm, pretty much like moles within the company that leak information. But what do you guys think? Is this too good to be true? Could George possibly be buying back Star Wars? Could Disney ever sell Star Wars? Is it actually going to happen? What do you guys think?
I like the idea of George doing his Star Wars, but, you know, buying the Star Wars rights back and doing his version of Star Wars. I just don't know if he wants to do that, because, you know, he's old now, and the original reason that he said he sold it in the first place was so that, like, Star Wars could continue in the future and to carry on having projects.
I don't think he foreseen, though, how badly Disney would handle it. He thought they would have, like, did a stellar job, and it's like, at first they were doing a pretty good job with Rogue One and Episode 7, while it's not really a great movie overall, when it first came out, it was doing really well because people had high hopes. And then Rogue One, and then they did Rebels. Rebels was really good. It's like Disney was doing great at first, and then just Episode 8 came out, and it all went to shit. Like, it all just went down the drain. I don't think he foreseen just how badly Disney would have handled things. So, I don't know if he'd honestly buy it back. Apparently, there is an offer on the table, though, and things are going to hell at Lucasfilm and Disney. Do you have any opinions on it, Hombree?
Let's assume we live in the best possible timeline and George Lucas actually buys back the Star Wars. What's going to happen? Because is he going to create one more continuity so we will have 3? Is he going to try and fix whatever was happened and to be honest, I don't see that happening because the damage has been already done, and buying it now and trying to fix it is too little too late, to be honest. And going to the expanded universe is also not an option because George at times wasn't a fan.
Yeah, he really wasn't a big fan. There are some things that he did greenlight in the expanded universe, but then many others that he was just like, yeah, that's not my universe, he said. So, very, very complicated situation there. Again, there's a lot more sources saying that an offer is on the table, so that's huge. And I don't know who the buyer could be. If it's not George, I don't know who the hell would want to take over Star Wars. But I think it's just a matter of Disney sees that they're losing more money lately than they're gaining with Star Wars, and they just want to stop the hemorrhaging by cutting off the bleeding limb, probably what it is, if they really are planning on selling it. Now, that's going to cause internal conflicts because there's going to be, you know, the people looking at the overall profit of the Disney Corporation, they're the ones that want to sell it, but the people working on the Star Wars projects, like internally, they're not going to want to sell because they're going to lose out on money, of course, because they're working on these projects and it's all going to get canceled and halted. So I'm sure it's like a civil war going on right now inside Disney, and that's another thing all the sources are saying, that it's like, it's bad.
I looked it up. So George sold Star Wars, the rights for Star Wars, for 4.4 billion, and it's currently estimated, like the franchise's value is worth 7 in the 7 billion ballpark, right? But that's why I said ballpark. That's why I said somewhere. Disney has only made a 1.4 billion profit in the whole time that they've had Star Wars. They're not making their money back. They invested in all these theme parks, like, you know, Star Wars in Disneyland and whatnot. We just last episode we were talking about that horrible hotel that like was a big dumpster, like fire, like a failed like investment. They were charging like $2,500 to stay there. It's just crazy prices. You know, there was like the Obi-Wan show. Like it's like everything that they plan on doing, they just make a loss on.
You know what it is? When they bought Star Wars Disney, they probably expected that it would make as much money as George did. Like, they would make as much, if not more money than George did when he was making Star Wars, right? I know you've watched Dragon Ball Z before, Tomba, but have you ever watched it, Hombree?
Yeah. I watched Z, Super, everything.
It's akin to when, in the Namek saga, when Ginyu saw Goku's power and he was like, I'm gonna steal his body and get all that power, and then he stole the body, but he didn't know how to use it, and so he ended up getting his ass kicked by Gohan and Krillin. It's literally that.
Wasn't it that he didn't know how to use the Kaioken? But he basically could use the power, but didn't know how to use the technique, so it was useless to him.
So Disney doesn't have the same heart that like George did. Like, they don't have that key that I think only he could put into it.
It was more akin to when Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black stole Goku's body, and Vegeta was like pounding him, saying, "You may have the body, but you don't know how to use the power. You don't understand. You haven't worked for it." Like, Disney thought they could buy it and it would sell itself, and they don't understand how much passion and like effort goes into Star Wars.
And they didn't work for it. All they did was buy the rights. You're right. They didn't work for it. They didn't build it from the top like George did. And so it's...
Disney has to understand there has to be a reason why us Star Wars fans respect George so much. It's not just because he's the creator of Star Wars. It's because it's like he understands Star Wars because he essentially is Star Wars. Like it came from his mind. Like, he knows what he's doing to the T. Disney does not know anything. Like, look at the sequel movies. Negative things I could say, but let's just say they didn't know what they were doing, and they were switching directors like musical chairs. Because they were like, oh, this one failed. Quickly, let's get a new one director. They were throwing big name directors at the movies, right? Thinking, oh, it's a big name, so it will succeed. No, there's more to it than that. Those big name directors, they pick their projects because they know where their strengths lie. Disney does not pick any strengths. They just throw money at everything. And that's where they fail.
It's like Homer is to the Odyssey as George is to Star Wars. Like, you can't separate the two, give it to somebody else, and then expect the work to be as good. And that's the thing about Star Wars. It's a creation of mythos. It's not just like your generic sci-fi story. It's got something real special about it, and that's why we all love it. It's like Disney's done good in some places. I'm not hating on Disney 110%, because they did good with Rogue One. They did a pretty good job with Rebels. Okay, Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 were pretty fucking fantastic. It's not like they failed completely. But overall, though, they have lost money. They haven't done a good job. They've put too much like politics into it, especially recently. And I think overall, it's to the point now where they're just like, okay, let's just hand this off to somebody else because, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be able to make our money back unless we sell it now. Because if they did sell it now for $7 billion, they would make a profit off the entire ordeal, like overall. So that's probably what they're looking at. They're like, screw it, we're just going to sell it and make a little bit of profit. Call it a day. We still got Marvel, we still got whatever, and that's probably how they're thinking. We'll see what happens. We got to see. It's probably in the coming months. Get some official news on it if they really are planning on selling it. I don't know. George buying it back just sounds too good to be true. I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
I just really wish, whether it was positive or negative news, I just really wish George would come out and say something, put us all at ease. Maybe the reason he hasn't came out and said anything is because, you know, like the deal hasn't gone through yet. Maybe the more we talk about it, the more pressure it puts on Disney, because we're all excited to have George back.
Listen, George has always been a guy that holds his cards close to his chest, so he wouldn't be talking about it if that was truly what's going on.
Yeah, he would wait until it was a real thing. But I'm hoping that Disney's feeling the pressure. They're feeling the pressure financially. I'm hoping the mouse starts feeling the pressure in terms of like seeing the response to how much we want George to buy Star Wars.
I just can't imagine who the other individual is. Again, an individual. So it's like, who else could be thinking of buying Star Wars?
Well, I just looked up. I just looked up the richest film directors. Steven Spielberg's worth 3.7, and George Lucas is worth 5.4.
See, I don't know if Steve would really buy it. I don't know.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. What if it was a joint venture?
Steve and George teaming up like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, because they've done it before. What if it was like a, we'll join forces kind of thing? I don't see why not. They're friends.
Again, all the sources are saying it's a single individual, though. It's an individual. So, again, we'll just have to wait and see. You got any other opinions on it, Hombree? Because if not, we're going to be moving on to some questions that we have for you.
Yeah, we can move on, I think.
Okay.
I just hope it's not a company like Amazon. Like,
you thought it was bad with Disney. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world, and we all seen what he did to the Lord of the Rings show.
Oh no, yeah. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah,
like, they would sell it to him, and then Mickey would be like, "Oh, I bet you want me back now."
It's all a long game for us to miss Disney.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's all.
Oh my God.
It's all.
Lord, don't even joke, Tomba. Don't even joke, please. All right, Hombree. So, since you're a new guest here, we got a few questions for you, and then we'll close out the podcast. So, you're a big fan of KotOR. We all know it. We all love KotOR. Best game ever. So, how old were you when you first played it?
I don't exactly remember, but I was between 5 or 7. So basically between 2003 and 2005, I'm not exactly sure. And the first time I was playing it, I played it in Polish, and I didn't exactly understand how the whole RPG mechanics works in it, so I had no bloody idea what I was doing for the first time. I actually had to come back years later to replay it to actually understand it, and actually enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah, I didn't know they had Polish dub of KotOR.
No, not dub, subtitles.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
If it had a Polish dub, it would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. And how long would you say you've been a mod for 100% Star Wars?
Let me check when I joined the server, because it was about half a year later. That's gonna be more than 2 years now.
That's a big position, because he's a pretty goddamn huge KotOR Star Wars channel, so... I'm jealous, dude. I'm jealous.
Even though he claims he's 100% Star Wars, he only talks about Old Republic.
He should be 100% KotOR, and I told him that before. I'm like, you should rename your channel. And besides KotOR, I think I know the answer. But besides KotOR, what's your favorite Star Wars game of all time?
It's not exactly a game; it's a series, and it's the Dark Forces and Jedi Knight series. Yeah, there is no question about that.
I knew that's what you're gonna say. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really had a great time streaming it, and having you in the comments helping me out. So that was a great time, man. I thank you for that.
Enjoyed this game so much, so I really couldn't get into KotOR when I was younger because of that. Because I was wondering, like, why can't I swing my lightsaber in the cool way? Why do I have to wait for my turn? What is that?
That's hilarious. It's two completely different games. That would be interesting if they swapped and like KotOR had the gameplay Jedi Outcast, and Outcast had the gameplay of KotOR, do you think they'd still be good games if that happened?
Not really, because in KotOR's case, the fact that it's an RPG is basically the heart of the game, and if it wasn't, we would basically lose a lot of the charm that the game had, in my opinion, because the dialogue selections, the fact that you can play non-canon options like a female Revan, which a lot of the girls were really fans of. I know a couple even on our server. So taking that away would kinda take away the charm.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same game. And yeah, Tom, I see you posting that GIF. We all know your favorite is Force Unleashed. It is a great game. Force Unleashed is pretty fantastic, and I like the story. I've said it 1,000 times, but I like the story of the Force Unleashed way more than Rebels.
Yeah, I have one problem with Force Unleashed, and that was that lightsabers were basically glorified bats, but glowing.
Yeah, true. I mean, this is like, they should have had like a similar system to like the Jedi Survivor games where, like they dodge and counter. Like if they made enemies more like squirrely and like more likely to dodge and move around, it would make it harder to hit with a lightsaber. But when you did, it would be like dismemberment, Instead of just like slashing them 5 times and then nothing happens. As we all know, that armor can't do anything. I mean, which show was it where the woman just hit him in the head and he fell over? Which was that?
It was in Obi-Wan,
right? Yeah.
She slapped him and he died.
Yeah. Yep.
And you can't even say it was a Force slap because she doesn't have the Force, so it's like you can't even say it.
No, she just knocked his head off. Like,
yeah, but she was a strong, powerful woman. Okay?
That's why, right? Yeah, just don't question. Do not question. Absorb the content. Give us your money. It's Star Wars. Anyway, so okay, that's gonna do it, guys, for this.
Can I stop you for a moment? Because there is one thing I'd like to touch on. Because
sure,
I miss lightsaber dismemberment in Star Wars. We don't have that anymore, and that annoys the hell out of me.
That's another reason why it'd be good to have George back. Bro, I want a rated 18 Star Wars game.
I haven't played Jedi Survivor yet, but from what I've seen, there is dismemberment in it. But it's like, how from what I've seen, it looks like it's like low-grade dismemberment. Like, you can't bisect people or decapitate people, but you can chop their limbs off pretty much, and that's it. You gotta bring back the bisections and the decapitations, right, guys? Like, come on. Right? I want to go cock a tarn on a motherfucker and chop him right in half.
Listen, if it was good enough for Darth Maul, it's good enough for you, alright?
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, well, I guess that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of the Rageous Cantina podcast. I think we had some good talks. I appreciate having you on, Hombree. I hope you'll join us again maybe in the future.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't really have much time because I started going to work lately, and it's been rough, to say the least.
I hear you, man. And thanks, as always, for joining me again, Tomba.
You're welcome. Catch you next time.
All right. Thanks again for sitting down with me for this episode of the Podcast Box Bros. Let me know your thoughts on what we talked about in the comments below. I always make certain to reply to every comment on the podcast. Big shout out to my Patreons and channel members. You guys make all of this possible, so thank you. If you'd like to become a channel member or a Patreon, make sure to check the description down below. You can earn all sorts of awesome rewards and benefits for becoming a Patreon. But yep, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be sure to catch you on the next one. Peace out, Box Bros.